事情在这里说半天。知道吗？知道。到没写完我还。现在开始问答吧。问答我不想问了，好傻。
Good morning, my dear friends. This would be the last week for this semester and the last time for the whole course, right? But this is rather important. Although last night I have already sent you something important related to the final exam. If you know what I mean. Do you know what I mean? Okay, good. So you are smart enough. Today, in this period, I'd like to say something more about the general exceptions. General exceptions. As you can see it here, the most important exceptions from GATT obligations is general exceptions, are general exceptions. How many subparagraphs are there in Article 20 or under Article 20? How many? From A to J, how many? Very good. 10 subparagraphs. Okay. Good. Then, the last biggest question in the final exam would be an elaboration on something about the exceptions and the general exceptions. And that's why I would like to reiterate this topic here. Okay? So the first question would be, how many steps? How many steps let me check. How many steps are there to determine whether an otherwise GATT inconsistent measure can be justified under Article 20 of GATT 1994? That's the most basic question you need to know. How many steps are there for an otherwise GATT inconsistent measure to be justified under Article 20 of GATT 1994? Article 20 of GATT 1994 is about general exceptions. Yes or no? Yes. Good. So my question is, how many steps are there for us to apply this article in practice, in a specific or particular case? How many steps are there? Actually, there are 2 steps. The answer lies here. Where? No? Not. It did not appear on this page? No? Then let's move on to the next page. What about here? Can you find the answer here? How many steps then? Okay, very good. 2 steps. The first step would be whether this measure, this particular measure, can be provisionally justified under one of the specific justification grounds listed in subparagraphs A to J of Article 20. So I'd like to draw a big bracket. A big bracket. The first step would be, look here, provisionally be justified. Provisionally justified under A to J. Under A to J, provisionally justified. Under article from A to J. This is step 1. And what's the step 2? The step 2 would be whether the application of this measure meets the requirements of the chapeau. The chapeau appears again here. Application of this measure. It means the process of the application of the measure. The application of the measure also means the process of using this article. The application of this measure must meet the requirements of the chapeau. So I'd like to write it down here, the requirements. The requirements of the chapeau. This is the step 2. Then why do we call it an elaboration question? Because this is just the first layer of the big question. There are so many other layers of small questions. Okay, let's explore the questions deeper down. Next question, question number 2. What are the requirements for an otherwise get inconsistent measure to be provisionally justified under Article 20A? Here. Let's make Article 20A as an example. So my question is, what are the requirements for an otherwise get inconsistent measure to be provisionally justified under Article A? What are the requirements? How many requirements? 2, right? Very good. Then what's the first one? Yes? Would you like to have a try?
Yes. The measure must be designed to protect public morals.
And what about the second?
The measure must be necessary to fulfill that policy objective.
Very good. As you can see, it's here. This is Article 20A of the GATT 1994. And the answer to the question I just now posed is here. For a GATT inconsistent measure to be provisionally justified under Article 20A, the measure must, number one, be designed to protect public morals. Number two, the measure must be necessary to fulfill that policy objective. What's the policy objective about here? To protect what? Article 20A is to protect what? Very good. Public morals here, right? Public morals is the objective. Article 20A is designed to achieve. So, designed to. Designed to achieve the policy objective. Number two is necessary, right? Necessary, good. Necessary to achieve the policy objective. Very good. The answer lies here, as you can see. Then, let's go one step further. One step further. How to meet the requirements for this question? Where can you find the answer? Can you find the answer in the PPT? Is there anybody who wants to have a try to find the answer to that question? And what's that question exactly like? It's like this. What are the requirements for a measure to be designed to protect public morals? What are the requirements for a measure to be designed to protect public morals? Designed to protect public morals. Then what are the requirements for a measure to be designed to protect public morals? What are the requirements? How many? Also two. And that's why it's complicated, as you can see it here, okay? Also two. Number one, actually, the answer also lies in the PPT, but maybe you didn't notice it. I'll feed you the answer directly, okay, to save time. The first requirement would be the objective is the protection of public morals. The objective is to protect public morals. And the second requirement would be the measure is designed to achieve that objective. These two measures are requirements. Okay, then let's move a step further to this question. What are the requirements for a measure to be necessary to protect public morals? Necessary. For this part, it's rather complicated. It's even more complicated than this small question because it relates to more than two requirements and it has more content. And that's why we say it is complicated. It's really complicated. And why you feel difficult to understand it. About this part, there are about 4 questions for you to answer. Question number 1. How do we determine the necessity, the necessary? I mean, the measure is necessary to protect public morals. How do we determine that? Question number 1. What is the key point to meet the necessary element? This is the necessary element. The second element is the necessary element. The first question is, what's the key? What is the key point to meet the necessary element? What is the key point? What is the key point? Yeah, here. What is the key point? Look here. First of all, it is important. Look here. The second element means here. The second element means the necessary element. Here. Okay? It's important to note that the question is not whether the policy objective, which is to protect public morals, aimed at by the member or or the level of protection of public morals it wishes to provide is necessary. The question is only whether the measure at issue is necessary to protect public morals at the level it has set. This is the key point. The question is not blah, 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 but is blah, blah, blah. This sentence is something you need to memorize because it's the first small question here. And the second small question would be, in the determination of whether a measure is necessary, what are the 3 factors to be weighed and balanced against? The answer is evident, rather evident right here. What are the three factors to be weighed against in the determination of whether a measure is necessary? What are they? Yeah, number 1, number 2, number 3. These are the three factors to be weighed against. 3 factors. Oh. Three factors. You need to memorize the 3 factors. Okay, now let's talk more about the third factor. The third factor. Here. The extent to which the measure at issue contributes to the protection or promotion of the value at stake. Extent to which contributes to the protection or promotion of the value. There is an objective, that is to protect public morals. And here there is a measure. My question is the extent for the measure to contribute to achieve the public moral, this objective, the extent. How to determine the extent? How to? Look at this sentence. I think I've mentioned this before, right? Question number 3. How to determine the extent? How to determine the extent? What? The extent for the measure to contribute to the policy objective. How to? Let's read this sentence together. The more important the societal value protected by the measure at issue, here it means public morals, right? Yes, good, public morals. The more important the public morals are, then the more it contributes to the objective, right? Good. And the other sentence is, and the less trade restrictive, it does not restrict trade. Less trade restrictive, okay? The less trade restrictive the measure is, the easier the measure at issue may be considered to be necessary. Okay. About this extent, there are 2 sentences. The first one is what? What's the key word? The more what? The more what? The more important, right? The more important the value is, then the more it contributes to the protection of the value, right? The objective. Good. Then the less what? Trade restrictive. Good. Restrictive. The less trade restrictive it is, then the what? The easier to be considered to be necessary. Right. Good. So here, there's also 2 sub-branches here. Okay? 2 sub-branches here. Then, let's move on to next step. How to come to a preliminary conclusion that the measure is necessary to protect public morals. How to come to a preliminary conclusion? Question number 4. How to come to a preliminary conclusion that the measure is necessary? How to?
Comparing the measure at issue with
Here. A preliminary conclusion that the measure is necessary must be confirmed by, yes, good, comparing the measure at issue with which? With alternative measures, right? As you can see here, these two words are in the comparative form, 比较级, right? Right? And that's why when we are coming to a preliminary conclusion, there must be something to be compared. Which one is to be compared? The alternative measure, right? Yes, good. So, it's from the question number 4. Preliminary conclusion to compare an alternative. Oh, hope this works. Oh, good. Alternative measure to compare the alternative measure with the measure at issue, right? With the measure at issue. Then how to compare? What's the result? What's the result of the comparison? If a reasonably available alternative measure exists, there is this measure that is less trade restrictive while providing an equivalent contribution to the achievement of the objective, the measure at issue will not be found to be necessary. Which means this alternative measure exists. Exists means there is such an alternative. If there is such an alternative, is the measure at issue necessary? No, good. Because there exists an alternative one, which is less trade restrictive, right? So that's not necessary. Good. Then let's move on. Who should bear the burden of proof to identify such an alternative measure? Who should? The respondent or the complainant? Huh? I'm afraid you made a similar mistake like the first time we talked about this. Again, which party should bear the burden of proof of identifying such an alternative measure? The complainant or the defendant? Which party? The complainant. Why? Because you are the complainant. You are the initiator. You want to sue the respondent. So it is up to you to identify an alternative measure to say that your measure, the respondent's measure, is not necessary. Yes or no? The complainant. Just now you said a complainant?
No.
Okay. The complainant. Good. Who should bear the burden of proof? Burden of proof. Of identifying such an alternative. The complainant. Good. The complainant. Here there is a principle. 谁主张谁举证? How to translate that into English? The party who asserts a fact is responsible for the burden of proof. Okay? Good. Then, what should the respondent do? For example, I'm the complainant. I identified an alternative measure. Then, what would the respondent do to the alternative measure? It will try to, what? The complaining member bears the burden of proof. While for the responding member, the respondent, it needs to show that any alternative measure identified by the complaining member is not reasonably available, is not less trade restrictive, and provides a lesser contribution to the achievement of the measure's objective. Also 3 small points. What will the responding party do? Respondent will do what? A, B, C. What is A? Not reasonably available. What's B? Not less trade restrictive. What's C? Provides a lesser contribution to the measure. Okay, good. Now let's move on. Okay, I think for this is necessary. That's everything for the necessary. Have you ever felt the beauty of logic reasoning? That's something particular to the law. And that's just only the first part. Now let's come to the second part. The requirements of the chapeau. The requirements of the chapeau. Okay. Here. The chapeau of Article 20 of the GATT 1994. The question is, what is the purpose of the chapeau of Article 20? The purpose. It's to what? Good. To what?
To prevent that the application of the provisional justified measures constitutes a misuse or abuse of the exceptions of Article 20.
Very good. The answer lies here. The object and the purpose. Here. That's the purpose. Then, next question. What are the requirements set out in the chapel? Here. What are the requirements that are set out in the chapel? Also two. The requirement number one is here. The application of the measure does not constitute one, yes, arbitrary or unjustifiable discrimination. Discrimination. Number two is it does not constitute a disguised restriction. Disguised restriction, 变相贸易限制，任意、不合理的歧视 ，arbitrary and unjustifiable discrimination. These two requirements means what? The application of the what? The application of the measure. It means the process of applying the measure. You still remember the EC seal, the case, EC seal case. Here, EC seal, this case, you still remember that? I talked about this in class, this case. This case is primarily about this part. Seal is an animal, right? Hunted by Inuits, right? Hunted by Inuits. But this EC is European communities. Right now, it is European Union, right? So, what's this case about? I'd like to explain this case again to you, okay? The EU citizens would like to protect the welfare of seals. That is a kind of public moral, right? Yes, good. Then it adopts a measure to ban, a trade ban. To ban what? To ban the importation of seals. Yes or no? Yes. To ban the importation of seal meat. Ban. But this measure, there's something wrong with this measure. What's the problem with this ban, with this measure? It sets an exception. It prohibits the importation of seals, but it leaves a back door. To what? To the seals hunted by Inuits. Yes? Yes. Inuits. This is a back door. A back door to Inuits, this ban. Then at this time, there will be two types of seals. The first type would be hunted by Inuits. The second type would be hunted by businessmen. Yes, good, by businessmen. Then this ban has two ways of application. Do you think this kind of measure constitutes discrimination? First, no matter it is hunted, the seal is hunted by Inuits or by the businessman, the seals are hunted. Will this help to the protection of public morals? No. No. Because either hunted by Inuits or hunted by businessmen, they will do harm to the protection of public morals. There's no difference. Again, there is a second discrimination. These Inuits also can be distinguished into Canadian Inuits and Greenlandic Inuits. Okay. Canadian Inuits and Greenlandic. But here, the EU made another mistake because EU grants favor to the Greenlandic Inuits while discriminates against the Canadian Inuits. So it constitutes discrimination. So, can this measure be justified under Article 20 of GATT 1994? Yes or no? Huh? Yes or no? Of course, no. Because these are the requirements. This requirement is not satisfied. So, this measure cannot be justified under Article 20 of GATT 1994. Okay. That shows the beauty of logic reasoning. And that's the essence of the law. Yeah. Take a break of 5 minutes and we'll come back later.